Please remain standing for the posting of the colors, the playing of the French and U.S. national anthems, and the invocation.
Veuillez rester debout pour le lever des couleurs, les hymnes nationaux de la France et des États-Unis et l'invocation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the invocation offered by the U.S. Army Europe Command Chaplain, Colonel Timothy Mallard.
Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez rester debout pour la prière donnée par l'aumônier militaire en chef des forces armées américaines stationnées en Europe, le colonel Timothy Mallard.
Almighty God, Lord of hosts, sacred to us is the memory of our fallen and the sacrifices of our veterans on these waters, shores, fields, and skies. And thus we humbly ask for your holy presence here today in this ceremony. From many nations, their sacrifice, poured out in blood, courage, and even death, to secure liberty for your enslaved children and to smash tyranny, remains our moral touchstone. For so great an act of love, we pray that you will grant them eternal peace and their families lasting comfort. By their courage on D-Day and afterwards, we also pray that you will challenge us to love freedom more than comfort, privilege, or even life itself, and that without thought of cost or reward, we also will recommit ourselves to defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of the common good, no matter the cost. Though we are resolute in our request, O God, we know we cannot achieve this without your divine blessing and guidance. And so lead us as our shepherd, even if it be again through the valley of the shadow of death, towards the green pastures of peaceful freedom. All this we ask, O Father of mercy, in thy holy name. Amen.
President and Miss Macron, President and Miss Trump, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Normandy American Cemetery and Memorial in Colville-sur-Mer for the commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings on 6 June 1944. Today we honor and commemorate the 9,388 interred here, the 1,557 names on the wall of the missing, and all of our World War II veterans.
Monsieur le Président, Madame Macron, Monsieur le Président, Madame Trump, Mesdames et Messieurs les représentants officiels, Mesdames et Messieurs, bienvenue au cimetière américain de Normandie de Colville-sur-Mer pour la commémoration du 75e anniversaire du débarquement du jour J, le 6 juin 1944. Aujourd'hui, nous rendons hommage aux 9 388 soldats qui reposent en ce lieu, aux 1557 disparus honorés sur le mur des disparus, ainsi qu'à tous les combattants de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez vous asseoir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of the American Battle Monuments Commission, William Matz.
Mesdames et messieurs, le secrétaire de la Commission des Monuments de guerre, William Matz.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our commemoration ceremony of the Normandy landings. And it is indeed an honor for me to be with you today on these sacred grounds of the Normandy American Cemetery to celebrate the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And we extend a particularly warm welcome to President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, and his wife, Brigitte Macron. And to our President and Commander-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump, and First Lady, Melania Trump. To our many distinguished government and military leaders, and to the families of our honored dead who traveled to these now peaceful and hallowed grounds to bear witness to the valor and the sacrifice of their family heroes resting here. And to the more than 160 World War II veterans seated herein on this stage who need no reminders of the horrors of war and who remember well their comrades who never came home. And folks, a very special welcome to the D-Day veterans present today, approximately 35, who 75 years ago on Omaha and Utah beaches and in nearby landing fields took the first treacherous steps towards liberation as a watchful world anxiously awaited word of their fate. The mission of the American Battle Monuments Commission, folks, is to commemorate and honor the service and sacrifice of United States Armed Forces. We do so by tending the graves and the memorials of our fallen servicemen and women, buried and memorialized at 26 American cemeteries around the world. We do so also by preserving the stories of their deeds and the endeavors of those that fought at their side, courageous actions that bequeath the blessings of freedom to generations yet unborn. 75 years ago, this very morning, and yards, simply yards from where each of you are sitting, a generation of young American men, joined by French, British, Canadian, and other allied nations, brothers in arms, did the unthinkable and accomplished the impossible. These men came ashore and fought against tyranny in a massive undertaking unparalleled in human history. It was Archibald MacLeish, the World War I veteran, who wrote these words in his poem, The Young Dead Soldiers. They say we were young, we have died, remember us. They say we leave you our deaths, give them their meaning. So many gave us their deaths. It is for us, our children, for generations to come, to give them their meaning. So our presence here today in this beautiful and inspirational cemetery does just that. For the very character of a country can be determined by the way it takes care of its war dead, and is a measure of its very heart and soul. To the more than 9,000 Americans who sleep here silently, we give our promise, we will not forget. Each year that we gather here, and everywhere they fought and fell, our still grateful hearts are filled by what they did 75 years ago this morning. We shall remember you as when you were reverently, lovingly placed in this hallowed ground. To them and to the World War II veterans with us here today and in spirit around the world, your service, your sacrifice will have meaning so long as those who follow you hold high the torch of freedom that you kept burning through history's darkest hours. Strengthened by their courage, heartened by their valor, borne by their memory, let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died. And so today I welcome you as we pause for a brief moment to remember and to rededicate our efforts to the promise of our commission's first chairman, General of the Army's John J. Pershing, that time will not dim the glory of their deeds. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of France, Emmanuel Macron.
Mesdames et Messieurs, Monsieur Emmanuel Macron, Président de la République française.
Monsieur le Président des États-Unis
President of the United States of America,
cher Donald Trump,
dear Donald Trump,
Messieurs les combattants du débarquement, chers vétérans,
veterans of the D-Day landings,
Mesdames, Messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen,
cette nuit du 5 au 6
the
juin
night
1944,
of the 5th to the 6th of June
la
1944,
Manche n'était pas seulement
the
troublée par la
Channel
brume naissante,
was not only troubled
par
by
la
the
houle soutenue
menacing
qui
fog
agitait les flots salés.
and the rough, crashing waves.
Depuis quelques heures, en
For
effet,
a few hours earlier,
depuis que le général Eisenhower
since
avait
General
lancé son fameux Let's
Eisenhower
Go,
roared his famous
ce
Let's
sont
Go,
1200 bâtiments de
some
guerre,
1,200 warships,
5700 navires de transport
5,700 freight ships,
canons et camions,
loaded
chars
with
et barges
cannons and
d'assaut qui
trucks,
gagnaient,
tanks and landing
précédés de
crafts,
25 flottilles.
following on the heels
Le
of
sud de l'île de
25
White.
flotilla, sailed
En ce point
towards the
baptisé par
south of the
l'état-major
Isle of
de
Wight
l'opération
to the
Overlord,
rendezvous point
Piccadilly Circus.
called by Operation Overlord military staff Piccadilly Circus.
Devant les dizaines de milliers de soldats qui avaient ainsi
Ahead
pris la
of
mer,
the tens of thousands of soldiers
rien
who
d'autre
took
que
to the
l'immensité
seas
noire,
lay nothing but massive
à peine
darkness,
éclairée par les lueurs des
barely
navires.
lit by the glowing lamps from the
Par la pleine
ships
lune.
and the full moon.
Devant ces soldats surtout,
Ahead of these soldiers, above all,
l'angoisse de l'inconnu.
lay the dread of the unknown.
Quelques heures plus tôt, ils
A
avaient
few hours
appris
earlier,
l'objectif de
they
leur
had
mission.
learned the purpose of their mission.
Mais leur destination,
Their destinations, Utah, Omaha, Juneau,
Gold et Sword
Sword,
Beach,
and Gold Beach,
sonnaient comme autant d'incertitudes.
were shrouded in uncertainty.
Seuls ceux qui avaient participé
Only
quelques mois
those
plus tôt
who, a few months
au
earlier,
débarquement
had
de
taken
Sicile
part
pressentaient
in the
peut-être ce qui les
Sicily
attendait alors.
landings perhaps had an idea of what was to come, a
Difficile.
bitter, difficult battle,
À coup sûr sanglant.
which would certainly claim the lives of many.
Ces milliers de soldats, donc,
Tens of
Conscrits,
thousands of soldiers,
engagés
drafted
volontaires,
or volunteers,
avaient pour la plupart,
most
une
were
vingtaine
barely
d'années.
20 years old.
et pourtant,
And yet,
ils semblaient déjà loin, les jours heureux de leur
their
jeunesse.
days of youth seemed far
Loin,
behind
les
them.
plaines vallonnées de Pennsylvanie,
Far,
du
the
Kentucky
rolling
ou du New
hills of
Jersey.
Pennsylvania,
Loin,
Kentucky, or
les
New
années
Jersey.
d'études où ils apprirent un métier
Far, their school years where they
qu'ils
had
n'eurent
learned a
parfois jamais
trade
l'occasion d'exercer.
that many had never had a
Loin,
chance to
les
practice.
entraînements exigeants
Far
commencés
from the grueling
sur les monts de
training
Géorgie
that
et
had begun
poursuivis
in the mountains of
à mesure
Georgia
que l'opération
and
Bolero les
continued
conduisait à
as
traverser
Operation
l'Atlantique
Bolero
au
brought
sud de
them across
l'Angleterre.
the Atlantic
Loin,
to the south of
les
England.
mois passés
Far
auprès des Britanniques
from the months
dans
spent amongst the
l'attente d'une
British
opération
people
dont ils ne
waiting
savaient rien.
for an operation of
Loin,
which they knew nothing.
les regards inquiets de
Far
leurs
from the
parents,
worried faces
au
of their
moment de leur
parents
départ.
when they left
Loin,
home.
les au revoir déchirants,
Far from
leurs
the
fiancés.
emotional goodbyes to their fiancés,
Tant et tant, en quittant les côtes
to whom
anglaises, leur avaient écrit
they wrote as they left the
à la
English
flamme d'une
shores
bougie ou d'un
by
briquet.
candlelight or the flickering flame of
Une
the
ultime
cigarette
lettre
lighter,
poignante.
one last heartbreaking letter.
À quoi songer
What
ces heures?
was running through their
Ces
minds,
jeunes gens glacés par le
the
froid
minds
des
of
nuits
these
des mers du
young
Nord?
people frozen by the waters of the North
Nul ne le
Sea?
sait.
Who knows?
Nul ne pénètre
Their
l'épaisseur des
thoughts
consciences.
are unfathomable. We cannot plunge
Mais
the
ce qui
minds
frappe
of
encore,
human beings.
75 ans après,
But what
C'est
resonates
le
still,
courage inouï,
75 years later,
la générosité
is their incredible courage and
dont ils firent
generosity.
il y eut durant ces heures-là comme une force qui allait et qui
The
portait chacun vers son
fortitude
destin.
that carried them towards
C'est
their
cette force
destiny,
d'âme qui les
that
conduisit là, à des
fortitude
milliers de
that
kilomètres
had
de chez
taken
eux,
them thousands of
pour
miles
porter
from
secours
home
à
to
des femmes
provide
et des hommes
assistance
qu'ils
to
ne
men and
connaissaient
women
pas,
whom they did
pour
not know,
libérer une terre
to free a
qu'ils n'avaient
land
pour la plupart jamais
they
foulée,
had never set
sans
foot in,
autre boussole qu'une
with
cause
no
qu'ils savaient
other
plus
compass than a
importante qu'eux,
cause that they knew was
celle de la
greater than
liberté,
themselves, the cause of liberty
celle de la
and
démocratie.
democracy.
Alors aujourd'hui,
Today,
la France n'oublie pas.
France has not forgotten.
La France n'oublie pas tous ces combattants
France
à
has
qui
not
elle doit de vivre
forgotten
libre.
those fighters
La
to
France
whom
n'oublie pas
we owe the right
les
to live in
135 000
freedom.
combattants américains,
We have not
britanniques,
forgotten the
canadiens,
135,000
qui, appuyés par des
American,
contingents
British and
belges,
Canadian soldiers,
luxembourgeois,
backed by
néerlandais,
Belgian,
norvégiens,
Luxembourg,
danois,
Dutch, Norwegian,
polonais,
Danish,
tchécoslovaques,
Polish,
australiens,
Czechoslovak, Australian,
néo-zélandais,
New
sud-africains
Zealand,
et
South
français
African and French
ont débarqué
troops
ce 6 juin
landed on
sur
the
les plages de
6th of
Normandie
June
et ont fait
on the
basculer
beaches of Normandy
le
and
destin de
forever
l'Europe et
changed
du
the
monde.
course of history in Europe
La
and the
France
world.
n'oublie pas
France
les
has
milliers
not
de
forgotten the
parachutistes qui,
thousands
quelques
of
heures plus tôt,
paratroopers who just a
été
few
largués à
hours
quelques
earlier
kilomètres et qui,
had been dropped
avec
behind the
l'appui de la
lines
résistance intérieure,
and, with the support
tinrent
of the
les ponts
French
stratégiques,
resistance fighters,
conquirent les routes,
would take
les
hold
voies
of
ferrées,
strategic bridges,
servir bientôt de
roads
relais à
and
ceux de
railway
leurs frères
lines,
d'armes
and
qui se
would
sortirent vivants
take
des
over
rivages
from their
d'émeraude
brothers in
rougis
arms who made it
par
out
le sang
alive
versé.
from the emerald shores,
La France
crimsoned
n'oublie
by
pas
the shed blood.
les 2 millions de
France has not
soldats
forgotten the 2 million soldiers
qui, ce jour le plus long, enfin expirait,
who, at the end
s'engagèrent
of
des
this
semaines durant dans
longest
les terres
day, would
normandes pour
continue
libérer ces
fighting
villes
on for weeks
et subir
to
l'enfer
free
de la
the
bataille
towns
du
and villages
bocage,
of Normandy and would go
plus
through the
meurtrière
hell
encore que celle
of
des
combat in the Normandy countryside, which was even
Alors,
more
au nom de la
treacherous
France,
than the combat on the beaches.
au nom de notre
On behalf
nation,
of my country, on behalf
Je
of
m'incline ce
France,
jour devant
I
leur
bow
bravoure.
down before their bravery.
je m'incline devant le sacrifice
I bow
immense
down before the immense
37 000
sacrifice
tués,
of the
des
37,000
19 000
killed,
disparus,
the
tombèrent
19,000
en héros
reported
sur ces terres
missing who
normandes
died as heroes
entre juin
in
et
Normandy
août
between June and
1944,
August
et pour la
1944,
plupart y reposent
and
pour l'éternité.
who, for many, were to rest there
Je
for
m'incline.
eternity.
Et à nos vétérans et à leur
I
nation,
bow down to our
je dis
veterans
merci.
and I say thank you.
We know what we owe to you veterans, our freedom. On behalf of my nation, I just want to say thank you. Nombre d'entre eux nous
Many
font
of our
face dans ce cimetière d'égaux morts pour notre liberté.
are here in this cemetery of
Vos frères
equals,
d'armes.
and they died for our freedom. They are your brothers in arms.
Cher
They are
Vincent
those
Hines,
who you, Vincent
vous avez
Hines,
tenté de sauver,
attempted to save.
vous qui vous êtes porté volontaire
You volunteered
pour faire
to
partie
take
de la
part
seconde
in the
vague
second
d'Omaha,
Omaha wave.
et qui, ce 6 juin,
On this 6th of
avez pris tous
June,
les risques pour
you
extraire les
put
blessés de la
yourself at
plage,
great risk to
alors
remove
que
the
l'intensité
wounded
des
from the
tirs allemands
beach
était maximale.
under the hail of German fire.
Ceux avec qui
The brothers
Cher
in
Paul
arms
Worth,
with whom you,
vous
dear
avez
Paul
combattu
Worth,
depuis
fought
cette même
from
plage
this same
d'Omaha
Omaha beach
jusqu'aux terres wallonnes de
right
Bastogne,
through to the Walloon
en
region
passant par la
of
bataille de
Belgium,
40 ans et cette
on
percée
the way
d'Avranches qui libéra
participating
la
in the
Bretagne.
Battle of Carentan and the Avranches
frères
breakthrough
d'armes.
that would free the Brittany region.
Ceux qui,
Your brothers in arms,
cher Charles Djourot,
those who you, dear
vous ont
Charles
accompagnés
Duro,
dans
accompanied
l'enfer des haies normandes,
through the treacherous
qui
Normandy
avez combattu sans
countryside,
discontinuer entre
you
le
who
7
fought
juin et le
non-stop
8
from the
juillet,
7th of June through to the 8th of July,
et qui, pour certains, vous ont suivi dans les Ardennes, au
the brothers in
Luxembourg,
arms
et
who
même dans la
accompanied
campagne
you
de
for some
Tchécoslovaquie.
to the Ardennes region, Luxembourg, and even the
Ceux qui,
countryside of Czechoslovakia.
cher Stanley Friday,
Those brothers in
vous ont
arms
secouru
who
qui
saved
avez
you,
été
Stanley
blessé à 2
Friday,
reprises
when you were wounded
dans
twice
la région de
in the
Saint-Lô,
Saint-Lô region
puis dans les
and
Ardennes,
then in the Ardennes,
et qui vous ont donné la force
and who
de
gave
repartir
you
au
the
combat
strength to head
jusqu'à
back
franchir le
into
Rhin pour
combat until you
participer
crossed the
à la
Rhine River,
libération des
where
camps
you
de
took part in
concentration
the
et croiser les
liberation of the
regards,
concentration camps
les
and
regards
saw
des survivants
the faces
et
of
les
the
regards des
survivors
bourreaux.
and the faces of the
Alors
executioners
peut-être avez-vous
alike.
compris,
And maybe then,
dans la vérité crue de ce
in the
moment,
raw moment,
Pourquoi
truth
vous
of that
étiez
moment, you understood what you were fighting
vos
for.
frères d'armes à vous aussi,
Your brothers in arms,
cher Harold Terrence.
of you
Vous qui
too,
d'abord
Harold
opérateur radio,
Terrence. You worked
avez
first
choisi
as a
en
radio
conscience
operator, and then
de
you
gagner le sol
deliberately
de France pour
decided
mener
to
des
go to
opérations
France to
militaires
lead
en
military
Normandie, à
operations
Reims,
in
à
Normandy, Reims,
puis autour du Rhin.
and in the Rhine region.
Cher Vincent Hines,
Dear
cher
Vincent
Paul
Hines,
Worth,
dear Paul
cher
Worth,
Charles Djourot,
dear Charles
cher
Duro,
Stanley
dear
Friday,
Stanley Friday,
cher Harold
dear
Terrence,
Harold Terrence,
en reconnaissance de votre
in
engagement
recognition of
infaillible
your
pour que la
unwavering
France recouvre
efforts
sa liberté,
for France to regain
je vous
its
ferai dans
freedom,
quelques instants
I will in
chevalier
just a few
de
minutes
l'Ordre national
award
de la
you
Légion d'honneur.
the Order of the Knights of the Legion d'Honneur.
Cette distinction
The Legion
La plus
of
élevée que
Honor
délivre la
is the
République
highest
française.
distinction awarded by
vient
the
bien
French
sûr saluer
Republic.
vos actes
It
exceptionnels,
commends
votre
your
courage,
extraordinary action,
votre
your
contribution à la
courage,
libération de
your
notre pays.
contribution to the liberation of our
Et c'est
country.
aussi pour la nation
It is
française
a way for the French
une manière
nation
de redire
to say
75 ans
once
après
again and 75 years
que nous
later
savons
that we
ce
know
que nous devons à
what
l'Amérique.
we owe to the United States of America.
L'Amérique,
The United
Cher
States of
Président
America, dear Donald Trump, dear
qui n'est
President,
jamais aussi grande
which is never
que
greater
lorsqu'elle se bat pour la liberté
than when
des
it
autres.
is fighting for the freedom of others.
L'Amérique,
The United
qui n'est
States
jamais
of
aussi
America,
grande que
that
lorsqu'elle
is
se
never
montre fidèle
greater than
aux
when
valeurs
it
universelles
shows
que défendaient ses
its
pères
loyalty
fondateurs.
to the universal
Lorsqu'il
values
y a
that
près
the
de 2
founding
siècles
fathers
et demi,
defended.
la France
When nearly 2.5
soutenir
centuries
son
ago,
indépendance.
France came to support its independence.
Mais nous vous devons plus.
But we owe you more.
Mais nous vous devons plus.
We
Nous
owe
vous
you
devons,
more.
messieurs.
Sir,
Nous
sir,
devons à tous ceux qui se sont
we
battus,
owe you, all
aux
those who
milliers de
fought,
civils qui sont tombés,
the
et que je
thousands
n'oublie
of
pas.
civilians who lost their
Plus que
lives
des
and who I
médailles,
have
plus
not
que des
forgotten. We owe more than
Nous devons
medals
nous
and
montrer
words.
dignes de l'héritage de
What
paix
we
que
owe
nous
you is to show ourselves worthy
avons
of
en
the
héritage.
heritage of peace that you have left
notre
us,
dette, digne de la
Our
promesse
debt.
de Normandie.
worthy of the promise
Et être
of
digne de la
Normandy.
promesse de Normandie, c'est ne jamais oublier.
Being worthy of the promise of
peuples
Normandy
libres,
means never
lorsqu'ils
forgetting
s'unissent,
that free
peuvent
peoples,
relever tous les défis.
when they join forces,
La victoire
can
contre la
surmount
barbarie
any
aurait été
adversity.
impossible sans
the
l'apport
victory
décisif
against
des États-Unis
barbarism
d'Amérique.
would never have been
Sans les
possible
millions
without the
d'hommes et de
decisive
femmes
support of the
engagés,
United
sans la
States, without the
mobilisation de
millions of
l'appareil
committed men and
industriel et
women,
de
without
toute
the
la
support
population
of the American
américaine.
people and American industry.
Et sur les plages de la Manche,
On the
dans le
beaches
vert bocage
of
normand,
the Channel, in the green
comme au
Normandy
plus haut niveau
countryside,
des états-majors,
and the highest levels of the military,
il y eut l'union l'union toujours.
The armed forces
armées
were
alliées.
united. The Allied
C'est parce
armed
que la
forces
Royal
were
Air Force
united.
prêta main forte à l'infanterie
It is
canadienne,
because the Royal Air
parce que la
Force
résistance
assisted the
française
Canadian
sut ouvrir
infantry,
en
because the
Normandie,
French
en
resistance
Bretagne et
fighters
ailleurs,
opened up the
la voie
lines
à
in
l'armée
Brittany
américaine.
and Normandy and
C'est parce qu'en des
elsewhere
moments décisifs
to
de la
the
bataille,
United States
intervinrent les
Armed
marins
Forces.
australiens,
In decisive
néo-zélandais,
moments of the
danois ou
battle,
norvégiens,
Australians,
les aviateurs
people from New
néerlandais,
Zealand, Denmark,
parce
and
que
Norwegian
dans
Navy
l'enlisement de la
officers and
bataille de
Dutch
la Poche,
airmen
de
arrived.
Falaise,
In the
les
interminable
blindés
battle
polonais
of the
firent la
Falaise
différence,
Gap, the Polish
que ce
tanks
pari
made all the
fou
difference. And it's
de
because
faire
of that
libérer l'Europe
that
du
this
joug nazi par la mer
wild gamble to
put être
free
tenu.
Europe from the Nazis' hold
Et
by
donc,
way
oui,
of the sea could be
Nous
won.
ne devons jamais
We
cesser de
shall
faire
never
vivre
cease to
l'alliance
perpetuate
des
the
peuples libres.
alliance of free peoples.
C'est ce que firent les vainqueurs
That is what the victorious sides
dès le
did.
lendemain de la capitulation allemande,
Immediately after the Germans and the Japanese
Japonaises.
surrendered,
en créant les Nations
when they
Unies.
created the
C'est
United
ce que firent
Nations.
les États-Unis
That
en
is what the
créant
United States
l'Organisation du
did
traité de
when it
l'Atlantique Nord.
created the North Atlantic Treaty
C'est ce
Organization.
que firent
That is what,
quelques années plus
a
tard,
few years later,
les dirigeants
the
de ce
leaders of
continent
Europe did
en faisant advenir
in
l'Union européenne.
bringing about the European Union.
Cette promesse de Normandie,
France
nous devons en retrouver le sel. Saisir à nouveau
wishes to
les raisons
continue
de
to
cet engagement.
support this promise of Normandy, understand
doit à
its
sa patrie.
purpose.
Ce qu'on
This
doit
is what
à
we
l'alliance
owe,
des
what
pays
we
qui
owe to
partagent
our
les mêmes
homeland,
valeurs,
what we owe to
celles de
countries
la
that share the
démocratie
same values, what we
et de
owe
la
to
liberté.
democracy and liberty.
La leçon de Colville-sur-Mer,
The lessons of
c'est que ces
Colville-sur-Mer
deux raisons
are
sont
clear.
inséparables.
Liberty and democracy are inseparable.
Ces jeunes Américains sont morts
Young Americans
Ici.
died here.
pour leur pays
They died for
et
their
pour la liberté
country,
du monde.
and they died
Ensemble.
for the freedom of the
Ils
world.
le savaient.
They knew that.
Et les Français qui sont morts sur les mêmes
The
plages
French
à leur
who
côté
died on the same beaches
tombés
by their
pour la
side
libération de
fell
leur
for
pays.
the liberation of their country.
sont aussi tombés
But they also
pour que leur
fell
nation revienne
so that their
une fois la
nation,
tâche accomplie
once this task
à sa
completed,
tradition de liberté.
would to rediscover its
Être fidèle à
tradition
leur
of
mémoire.
liberty. We need to be
C'est
true
d'abord
to their
ne
memory.
jamais séparer
And to do that,
ce que leur sacrifice
we must never
a uni.
sacrifice what
Cette promesse de
we
Normandie,
must never renounce what their
la France
sacrifice
continuera de la
united.
porter de toutes
The
ses
promise
forces.
of Normandy will
J'en
be
fais ici le
supported by
serment.
France with all its might.
Et elle est au
I
cœur
promise that this will be
de la
the
destinée
case.
américaine véritable.
And this is at the heart of America's destiny too.
Monsieur le Président des États-Unis d'Amérique,
President of the United States of
Mesdames et
America, ladies and gentlemen,
le long des routes de France, des
all
plages
along
du
the roads
Cotentin à
of
Cherbourg,
France,
de
the
Cherbourg à
beaches from
Avranches,
Cotentin to
d'Avranches à Metz, de Metz
Cherbourg,
à
from
Bastogne,
Cherbourg to
sur tous
Avranches,
ces
from
chemins
Avranches to Metz, and Metz
que
to
les héros que nous
Bastogne.
célébrons aujourd'hui ont empruntés à
Along those
partir de
roads
l'été
taken by the
44.
heroes we're honouring here today,
trouve
as of the summer
centaines
1944,
de
all
bornes
along we see hundreds of milestones.
ornés des étoiles du drapeau
They are
américain
decorated with the stars of the American
et
flag
de la flamme
and with the flame
de cette statue de
of
la
the
liberté
Statue
qu'un
of
jour,
Liberty,
un de nos
that
plus grands
statue
sculpteurs
that one of
offrit
our
à la ville
greatest
de New York.
sculptors gave to the city of New York.
Ces monuments de pierre
These stone monuments
sont des jalons de mémoire,
serve as
comme le
a
souvenir
reminder,
indélébile
an indelible reminder,
inscrit dans les terres de France de ce que notre pays
inscribed in the countryside of France, a reminder of what our country owes the United States of America.
résonne aussi comme une
Their
invitation à
presence
renouveler sans
resonates.
cesse
It's an invitation
ce
to us to
pacte séculaire
continue
unissant
renew
la
this
France,
secular pact
l'Amérique
that unites
et la
France,
liberté.
the United States of America, and freedom.
J'y suis prêt, Monsieur le Président des
I
États-Unis.
am ready, Mr. President of the
Donald
United
Trump.
States of America, dear Donald
Le
Trump.
peuple de France
The
y est
people
prêt.
of France are ready
Prêt à faire vivre cette amitié
Ready
entre nos nations
to,
qui a tant apporté à
renew
l'histoire des hommes.
this friendship between our
Et dont le monde
nations
d'aujourd'hui attend encore tant.
that has contributed so much to the history of
Nous sommes
humanity
prêts.
and that the world expects so much
Et nous le
from.
ferons.
We are ready and we will do this.
Alors merci.
Thank you.
Vive les États-Unis d'Amérique.
Long
Vive la
live the
République.
United States of America.
Vive la France.
Vive la République.
Et vive l'amitié
Vive la
entre
France,
nos deux
and
nations.
long live the friendship between our two nations.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Macron will now present the Legion of Honor to 5 of our World War II veterans.
Mesdames et messieurs, le président de la République Emmanuel Macron va maintenant présenter la Légion d'honneur à 5 vétérans de la Seconde Guerre mondiale.
Monsieur Vincent Heinz, au nom de la République française,
Mr. Vincent Heinz, on behalf of the French Republic, we award you the award of Knight of the Legion of Honor.
Monsieur Stanley Friday,
Stanley Friday,
au nom de la République
on
française,
behalf of the French Republic,
nous vous faisons chevalier
I award you the distinction
de la
of
Légion
Knight
d'honneur.
of the Legion of Honor.
Monsieur Charles Jourot,
Charles
au nom
Juro,
de la République
in
française,
the name of the French
nous
Republic,
vous faisons chevalier
I make
de la
you
Légion
Knight
d'honneur.
of the Legion of Honor.
Monsieur Harold Terrence,
Mr.
au
Harold
nom de la
Terrence,
République
in
française,
the name of the French Republic,
nous vous faisons chevalier de la Légion
I
d'honneur.
make you Knight of the Legion of Honor.
Monsieur Paul Worth,
Paul Worth,
au nom de la République française,
in the name of the French Republic,
nous vous faisons chevalier
we
de la
make you
Légion d'honneur.
Knight of the Legion of Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Donald.
Mesdames et messieurs, Monsieur Donald J. Trump, président des États-Unis.
President Macron, Mrs. Macron, and the people of France, to the First Lady of the United States and members of the United States Congress, to distinguished guests, veterans, and my fellow Americans, we are gathered here on freedom's altar, on these shores, on these bluffs, on this day 75 years ago. 10,000 men shed their blood and thousands sacrificed their lives for their brothers, for their countries, and for the survival of liberty. Today we remember those who fell and we honor all who fought right here in Normandy. They won back this ground for civilization to more than 170 veterans of the Second World War who join us today. You are among the very greatest Americans who will ever live. You are the pride of our nation. You are the glory of our republic. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Here with you are over 60 veterans who landed on D-Day. Our debt to you is everlasting. Today we express our undying gratitude. When you were young, these men enlisted their lives in a great crusade, one of the greatest of all times. Their mission is the story of an epic battle and the ferocious eternal struggle between good and evil. On the 6th of June, 1944, they joined a liberation force of awesome power and breathtaking scale. After months of planning, the Allies had chosen this ancient coastline to mount their campaign to vanquish the wicked tyranny of the Nazi Empire from the face of the earth. The battle began in the skies above us. In those first tense midnight hours, 1,000 aircraft roared overhead with 17,000 Allied airborne troops preparing to leap into the darkness beyond these trees. Then came dawn. The enemy who had occupied these heights saw the largest naval armada in the history of the world. Just a few miles offshore were 7,000 vessels bearing 130,000 warriors. They were the citizens of free and independent nations united by their duty to their compatriots into millions yet unborn. There were the British whose nobility and fortitude saw them through the worst of Dunkirk and the London Blitz. The full violence of Nazi fury was no match for the full grandeur of British pride. Thank you. There were the Canadians whose robust sense of honor and loyalty compelled them to take up arms alongside Britain from the very, very beginning. There were the fighting Poles, the tough Norwegians, and the intrepid Aussies. There were the gallant French commandos, soon to be met by thousands of their brave countrymen ready to write a new chapter in the long history of French valor. And finally, there were the Americans. They came from the farms of a vast heartland, the streets of glowing cities, and the forges of mighty industrial towns. Before the war, many had never ventured beyond their own community. Now they had come to offer their lives half a world from home. This beach, codenamed Omaha, was defended by the Nazis with monstrous firepower, thousands and thousands of mines and spikes driven into the sand so deeply. It was here that tens of thousands of the Americans came. The GIs who boarded the landing craft that morning knew that they carried on their shoulders not just the pack of a soldier, but the fate of the world. Colonel George Taylor, whose 16th Infantry Regiment would join in the first wave, was asked what would happen if the Germans stopped. Right then and there, cold on the beach, just stopped them. What would happen? This great American replied, "Why, the 18th Infantry is coming in right behind us. The 26th Infantry will come on too. Then there is the 2nd Infantry Division, already afloat, and the 9th Division, and the 2nd Armored, and the 3rd Armored, and all the rest. Maybe the 16th won't make it, but someone will." One of those men in Taylor's 16th Regiment was Army medic Ray Lambert. Ray was only 23, but he had already earned 3 Purple Hearts and 2 Silver Stars fighting in North Africa and Sicily, where he and his brother Bill, no longer with us, served side by side. In the early morning hours, the two brothers stood together on the deck of the USS Henrico before boarding 2 separate Higgins landing craft. "If I don't make it," Bill said, "please, please take care of my family." Ray asked his brother to do the same. Of the 31 men on Ray's landing craft, only Ray and 6 others made it to the beach. There were only a few of them left. They came to the sector right here below us. Easy Red, it was called. Again and again, Ray ran back into the water. He dragged out one man after another. He was shot through the arm. His leg was ripped open by shrapnel. His back was broken. He nearly drowned. He had been on the beach for hours, bleeding and saving lives, when he finally lost consciousness. He woke up the next day on a cot beside another badly wounded soldier. He looked over and saw his brother Bill. They made it. They made it. They made it. At 98 years old, Ray is here with us today with his 4th Purple Heart and his 3rd Silver Star from Omaha. Ray, the free world salutes you. Thank you, Ray. Nearly 2 hours in, unrelenting fire from these bluffs kept the Americans pinned down on the sand, now red with our heroes' blood. Then, just a few hundred yards from where I'm standing, a breakthrough came. The battle turned, and with it, history. Down on the beach, Captain Joe Dawson, the son of a Texas preacher, led Company G through a minefield to a natural fold in the hillside, still here. Just beyond this path, to my right, Captain Dawson snuck beneath an enemy machine gun perch and tossed his grenades. Soon American troops were charging up Dawson's draw. What a job he did. What bravery he showed. Lieutenant Spaulding and the men from Company E moved on to crush the enemy's strong point on the far side of this cemetery and stop the slaughter on the beach below. Countless more Americans poured out across this ground all over the countryside. They joined fellow American warriors from Utah Beach and allies from Juneau, sword and gold, along with the airborne and the French patriots. Private First Class Russell Pickett of the 29th Division's famed 116th Infantry Regiment had been wounded in the first wave that landed on Omaha Beach. At a hospital in England, Private Pickett vowed to return to battle. I'm going to return, he said. I'm going to return. 6 days after D-Day, he rejoined his company. 2/3 had been killed already. Many had been wounded within 15 minutes of the invasion. They lost 19 just from the small town of Bedford, Virginia alone. Before long, a grenade left Private Pickett, and he was gravely wounded, so badly wounded. Again, he chose to return. He didn't care. He had to be here. He was then wounded a third time and laid unconscious for 12 days. They thought he was gone. They thought he had no chance. Russell Pickett is the last known survivor of the legendary Company A. And today, believe it or not, he has returned once more to these shores to be with his comrades. Private Pickett, you honor us all with your presence. Tough guy. By the 4th week of August, Paris was liberated. Some who landed here pushed all the way to the center of Germany. Some threw open the gates of Nazi concentration camps to liberate Jews who had suffered the bottomless horrors of the Holocaust. And some warriors fell on other fields of battle, returning to rest on this soil for eternity. Before this place was consecrated to history, the land was owned by a French farmer, a member of the French resistance. These were great people. These were strong and tough people. His terrified wife waited out D-Day in a nearby house, holding tight to their little baby girl. The next day, a soldier appeared. "I'm an American," he said. "I'm here to help." The French woman was overcome with emotion and cried. Days later, she laid flowers on fresh American graves. Today, her granddaughter, Stephanie, serves as a guide at this cemetery. This week, Stephanie led 92-year-old Marion Wynn of California to see the grave of her brother Don for the very first time. Marion and Stephanie are both with us today, and we thank you for keeping alive the memories of our precious heroes. Thank you. $9,388 young Americans rest beneath the white crosses and stars of David, arrayed on these beautiful grounds. Each one has been adopted by a French family that thinks of him as their own. They come from all over France to look after our boys. They kneel, they cry, they pray, they place flowers, and they never forget. Today, America embraces the French people and thanks you for honoring our beloved dead. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. To all of our friends and partners, our cherished alliance was forged in the heat of battle, tested in the trials of war, and proven in the blessings of peace. Our bond is unbreakable. From across the earth, Americans are drawn to this place as though it were a part of our very soul. We come not only because of what they did here, we come because of who they were. They were young men with their entire lives before them. They were husbands who said goodbye to their young brides and took their duty as their fate. They were fathers who would never meet their infant sons and daughters because they had a job to do. And with God as their witness, they were going to get it done. They came wave after wave, without question, without hesitation, and without complaint. More powerful than the strength of American arms was the strength of American hearts. These men ran through the fires of hell, moved by a force no weapon could destroy. The fierce patriotism of a free, proud, and sovereign people. They battled not for control and domination, but for liberty, democracy, and self-rule. They pressed on for love and home and country, the main streets, the schoolyards, the churches, and neighbors, the families and communities that gave us men such as these. They were sustained by the confidence that America can do anything, because we are a noble nation with a virtuous people praying to a righteous God. The exceptional might came from a truly exceptional spirit. The abundance of courage came from an abundance of faith. The great deeds of an army came from the great depths of their love. As they confronted their fate, the Americans and the Allies placed themselves into the palm of God's hand. The men behind me will tell you that they are just the lucky ones. As one of them recently put it, all the heroes are buried here. But we know what these men did. We knew how brave they were. They came here and saved freedom. And then they went home and showed us all what freedom is all about. The American sons and daughters who saw us to victory were no less extraordinary in peace. They built families. They built industries. They built a national culture that inspired the entire world. In the decades that followed, America defeated communism, secured civil rights, revolutionized science, launched a man to the moon, and then kept on pushing to new frontiers. And today, America is stronger than ever before. Seven decades ago, the warriors of D-Day fought a sinister enemy who spoke of a 1,000-year empire. In defeating that evil, they left a legacy that will last not only for 1,000 years, but for all time. For as long as the soul knows of duty and honor, for as long as freedom keeps its hold on the human heart. To the men who sit behind me and to the boys who rest in the field before me, your example will never, ever grow old. Your legend will never die. Your spirit, brave, unyielding, and true, will never die. The blood that they spilled, the tears that they shed, the lives that they gave, the sacrifice that they made did not just win a battle. It did not just win a war. Those who fought here won a future for our nation. They won the survival of our civilization. And they showed us the way to love, cherish, and defend our way of life for many centuries to come. Today, as we stand together upon this sacred earth, we pledge that our nation will forever be strong and united. We will forever be together. Our people will forever be bold. Our hearts will forever be loyal. And our children and their children will forever and always be free. May God bless our great veterans. May God bless our allies. May God bless the heroes of D-Day. And may God bless America. Thank you. Thank you very much.
In honor and remembrance of the fallen who gave their lives in the service of France and the United States, the President of France and the President of the United States will lay a wreath in their memories, followed by a moment of silence.
En l'honneur et en la mémoire de ceux qui ont consenti l'ultime sacrifice au service de la France et des États-Unis, le Président de la République française et le Président des États-Unis vont maintenant déposer une gerbe, puis observer un moment de silence.
seated as Presidents Macron and President Trump greet the World War II veterans. Please rise and remain standing as we salute those whose final resting place is this hallowed ground.